Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find me on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you will consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and speech writing needs. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits as well as high net worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. I am delighted to be joined today by Ed Haas to discuss his photography career. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Bruce. Thanks for having me, and this is a fantastic thing that we're doing.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I want to go back to that photo that I showed just for a second. And I like this photo because it's black and white.
Right.
And it was also taken by your son.
Yes.
Let's discuss, you've had a 40-year career. What have the changes been? I mean, you've gone from film to digital, from black and white to color. Talk about what has happened in your industry.
Well, first of all, when I started out, photographers were kind of a specialty in the sense that there were no digital cameras, everything was filmed, there was a certain technique. There was, to a great degree, a certain mystique about being a photographer. We did a lot of black and white, primarily because individuals like myself would always have a darkroom, and we could always do black and white film processing and printing. Color was a different story. It generally had to go out to a lab, and you had very little control over it. If you think in terms of retouching, when I used to print black and white, working in the darkroom with burning and dodging and making things lighter or darker, that was our form of retouching. Today, the ballgame has changed significantly. Photography is accessible to virtually anybody, but there's still a particular technique in achieving a goal when you take a photograph. The difference, as I always say, between a professional and an amateur is going to get a good photo every once in a while, where a professional has to go out and get that good photo every time they step onto a job. And, I like to think that I still can do that after 40 plus years.
I'm laughing because years ago I worked for a Jewish federation, and I was the go-to person for just about everything. And one of the things I would do is take photographs at events. And we had a gymnastics program for children, and it was very successful. And I took a photo of a girl flying off of a beam. I don't know what it's called. I don't remember. And it was a perfect picture. I got her in mid-flight. Her hair was flying behind her. She had the perfect expression on her face. It was a magnificent photograph. And I put it in our newspaper. It was on the front page. And I didn't even bother calling her father. I said, he's going to see this on Friday. He's going to be here on Monday. Sure enough, Monday morning he comes in. He says, Bruce, you are such a phenomenal photographer. Can I have the picture? I'll pay anything for it. Of course, I had the photo and I handed it to him. It was waiting on my desk. And no, I didn't charge him anything for it. And I said, would you like to see the 10 pictures that I took beforehand and the 10 after? So literally a roll of film, I think was 24 pictures. So 23 were no good. One worked.
Exactly. Well, today, when I shoot sports, You can shoot at 7 frames a second, and just to your point, you can shoot 23 frames, and it's that 24th frame that just hits all the right points.
Well, we're going to.
I need to do that every time I go out and shoot. I can't come back and say, well, I didn't get it today. No, I have to get it today.
That's right. Now I want to go back to that photo.
Okay.
So I like it because it's black and white.
Right.
But here's the thing. I don't think this would be a good photograph in color. So when is black and white superior to color?
Well, in this particular case, my son is a journalist and a good photographer in his own right, and he really enjoys doing black and white. So we did shoot in color, because today you just shoot in color and you make the conversions on the computer. And there's something about black and white that strips away a lot of the kind of material that diverts your attention. So when you're in black and white, you're going to see the lines, the shadows, the details that you might just kind of glaze over when you're looking at a color photograph. And if it's a good black and white photograph, it stands out so much better than, quote, the color version of it.
Let's look at some of the photos that you were kind enough to prepare. Here we have executive portraits.
Right.
I'm going to leave this up. There are a few people. There's the gentleman on the left who's seated. He's got he's holding his hands. You have the woman on the right who is seated, has her arms crossed.
Right.
Now let's look at the financial portraits. Right. Every one of these nice people look like they're about to go into court. So explain the difference between the two, between the executive and the financial. What are you going for? Why the difference?
Well, okay, whether it's executive or financial, I just use that word to differentiate. But the thing about the quote financial, the executive portraits were that I was given a little bit more latitude in what I was to photograph. So the gentleman sitting in the chair, it's an orange chair, it's a gray rug, there's colored squares on the ground. He had a terrific smile. So I wanted to bring a little bit more of his personality through the photo, and that's what I did. The woman with her arms crossed, she seemed very comfortable that way. Again, I think I was shooting in a hallway. The clients in those particular things range from American Express to different corporations. Yeah, we have American Express. We have the person with the painting in the background. He's a lawyer. The group at the bottom, that was an interesting thing. That was a group of execs at American Express, and we photographed that on their executive floor. And the interesting part about this picture is that the gentleman on the far right, as you're looking at the photograph, wasn't there when I took the photograph. So we constructed the photograph to leave space for him. When he finally showed up, I took his picture in that position, and then in Photoshop, I added him into the picture, and it's virtually seamless. I don't think anybody would tell unless I told them what was going on.
No.
But in these portraits, the person sort of sitting casual with the open shirt, he's an attorney. So again, these people were good enough to give me a little bit more leeway in just a more straightforward photograph. In the financial portraits, we have things that are more static because, for example, these are, I believe, mostly people at Morgan Stanley. So the way Morgan Stanley works is they work in teams. So when I photograph a team, we try and come up with a theme to unify the individual portraits. So in the in the example of the top row, the right and center person, they were on the same team. So we had this background out the window of their office building, and I used that for all the team members. And then we did something else for the team. But again, it's important to me to give the client what they want, and then sometimes give the client what they need. And when I say that, it's like I have an idea that I think will make them look better and give me the opportunity to try it. It doesn't cost you any extra. It's just, let me give you this photograph as well. If you like it, fine. If you don't, we have what you asked me to photograph.
Now, I left this up because if you look at the lower left-hand corner of the group shots with multiple people,
right,
it seems like you set people up according to height.
Well, obviously, we don't want people blocked. Sometimes there is a hierarchy in the group. I'm not saying that was the case in these two photographs, but a team leader would generally be in the front of the photograph, and the second person in command of the team might be there as well. And then I put other people around for height issues, and also so shadows don't fall on their faces. I mean, obviously, you don't want a group of 6 people with one person having somebody else's head throwing a shadow on them. So there's at the end of the day, when you look at the photograph, it appears as if, oh, this is just a great natural photograph of this group. There's a lot of thought that goes into trying to accomplish that. Now, the interesting thing on these two group shots is the one shot, let me see, do we have that up there?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to it.
Okay, I'll just tell you very quickly. So the group on the bottom was a live shot in their lobby area. So that was all done live. The shot right above it was a group shot that we shot in an interior boardroom with striped wallpaper that, of course, was horrendous. And what I did was, and I do this frequently, is when I'm at a location, I will just point my camera out the window and capture photographs of buildings. In this particular case, it wasn't where these people were, but it was at a different one of their offices. I took that photograph and I dropped it in. So again, it gave them a little bit more dimension to the photograph than rather just having a plain background.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Now we've got running.
Right.
And there are a lot of photos here. The one at the top left.
Right.
The very center and the one on the right.
Right.
Those don't look like, they look more like logos than photos.
Well, again, the running photography for me has always been really a labor of love. It's something that I had the opportunity to do. I started about 17 years ago, with a client who moved over to New York Roadrunners as creative director, and she brought me in. I had worked for her in another company. And, it was this pure creative opportunity for me. So not only would I have my, quote, shot list of things that I was supposed to shoot, but they gave me the opportunity to basically look around and get shots. So the one with the feet and the shadow, I was just walking past, I saw it, I picked up the camera and I shot it. It's one frame, end of story.
Okay.
The middle top picture was, that was the 2000, it might have been 2001 or 2002 marathon finish line. I was up there. And the creative director said to me, you're going to be at the finish line and make sure you get people kissing the heart. And I said, you got 50,000 runners out here. Have you told them they should kiss the heart when they finish the marathon. So she said, well, of course not. I said, okay. So this person who came by, he was one of the elite runners, and he was just exhausted at the end of the marathon, and he dropped to his knees, and that was the shot. And I said, I'm screaming to myself, I can't believe I got the shot she asked for. And I love that shot. And on the right, the gentleman with the American flag is Matt Flay, who's won the New York Marathon a couple of times and the Boston Marathon. Fantastic guy. And this was one of his wins.
Now, the one that caught my eye on the left side, 3 down, if I'm seeing this correctly,
right.
This is a group of Hasidic Jews who are crossing the street behind the runner.
Right.
And it's the juxtaposition of the two cultures, if you will.
It's
now, is this being at the right place at the right time, or also having an eye?
Well, I like to think I have an eye, but what makes that picture to me even more special is the fact that one of the gentlemen in the group is actually turned looking at the runner.
Sure.
So that year I was assigned to shoot in Williamsburg. So when we shoot in Williamsburg, we have the Hasidics and we have the hipsters. There's and one street basically divides the two areas, and so the Hasidic community, it's a Sunday and they're out there doing their own business.
Sure.
So everybody knows that they're just going to cross the street when they're ready to cross the street. We all know it. We all know that these things are going to happen. We hope that, there isn't an accident, a pedestrian accident. But yeah, they do that. And, it's never really an issue. But in this particular case, this woman had run by, the group of gentlemen had crossed, and one person turns to look at her. And yeah, that's one of those things where you almost have to be standing there with the camera up at your eye and saying, is something going to happen here? And there's a little bit of knowing what situation you're in and knowing something could happen. Most of the time it doesn't, some of the times it does.
So we have here running, and now I want to show fitness.
Okay.
Now, with the exception of, I don't know how to describe it, but the aerobics class, the dance class, whatever, on the lower right.
Right.
That doesn't look like an action shot because it's so, there's nothing, the arms aren't blurred.
Well, this was an interesting situation. These photographs were actually for the cover of a DVD series for this program called AeroBox. And the gentleman with the eye patch, he created this fitness system. So I was hired to go in there. This was actually a TV studio that was built for this particular day. And the primary thing that was going on was they were doing videos. One of the things that is traditionally difficult is when you have video people and still people trying to work together at the same time. Either noise from the camera or just you being there. It's not an ideal situation. In this particular case, the video people were as nice as could be, and they said, look, if you stand here, or you stand over here, or you stand over there, feel free to shoot. Your camera won't bother us, and we just need you to be out of the way of our cameras. And I sat there in those different spots during the day, and I captured those images either during rehearsals or during live action. So, and some of the pictures, like the upper left, was a staged photo because those two people were integral in creating the AeroBox system. But the group shot was a live thing. It just so happened I got them frozen.
So in a way, I should have put these photos with the portraits because they're basically portrait shots.
In a way, yeah. I mean, a lot of my work is commercial. Some of it is editorial. I've done everything over a 40-year career, except weddings and bar mitzvahs. It's just.
Now, I've moved on. We've only got about 5 minutes left, and I'd like to get to the remaining slides. We've got here products,
So, yeah.
which include people.
I did.
And then, hang on, and at the lower left, we have food, but you also have food on location.
Right.
So talk to us about these two photos, or two sets of photos.
So the food on location was for a Greek restaurant and their menu board. So the people who owned the restaurant said, come in the restaurant, set up here, we'll make dishes, and you can photograph them. So I brought my equipment down to the restaurant. We found a table that had a suitable background, and they just kept making the dishes. I kept photographing them. As soon as we were done photographing them, we started eating them, and by the end of the day, I couldn't walk. It was a terrific shoot, and they've used the photos for quite some time now, and it really worked out well.
So you prepared a sign that says, we'll work for food.
Yes, I'll work for food.
Is there a difference between shooting a product and shooting a person, assuming that the person can stand still?
Well, the difference is the product photography is, in a way, very much more studied. You really have to watch the placement of everything. And if you look at any of those shots, shadows are where I want them to be. Overlaps of different foods are where I want them to be. More so in the other thing, the product photography, those were very specific photographs for very specific products. And you have to feature the product, especially in the eggs down in the lower left. A food stylist actually made those things. I think the product was something that made eggs. I don't quite remember. But the center picture was for Patron tequila. So we had all these glasses, and everything had to really look perfect. And actually, the background was a slide that I had projected on a screen in the background. The wine glasses I shot on my dining room table, and all that was there were 3 empty glasses and the bottles. Everything else I put together. I put the wine in the glasses in Photoshop. I did all that. And then the rings were, again, I wanted the shadows, I wanted the shapes, I wanted to give it something interesting. So these kind of things are just something that you have to pay attention to. It's just, it doesn't create itself. It's like a painter has a blank canvas. It just doesn't appear in front of him. You have to make what's going to be on the canvas.
Now, I am assuming, no disrespect intended to the gentleman, that the chef in the middle right side photo, the chef is the product.
Yeah, this is Bobby Flay. And one year he was producing pasta dishes for the pasta evening the night before the marathon. And we were in his restaurant. And besides me photographing the making of pasta dishes, he came in a little bit after that, and we wanted to do a portrait of him. And he was just as nice as could be.
Now, my question is, the top right photo of the lady, what's the product?
The product is golf fashion. I went up to a golf course in Connecticut one day, and it was actually freezing cold, but we had the models wear their coats, and then when I get ready to shoot. So this was for the company that designed the clothing, and we photographed all around the golf course. And in this particular case, she was holding the golf club. There's a scoreboard behind her, but really, we're selling the clothes. And in this case, the clothes and the event kind of they meld together a little bit because you want to say golf rather than just say a woman in a shirt and a skirt.
It's funny. I was looking at it and I thought she was holding a dog's leash.
Yes.
Just goes to show you.
Yeah.
Now, events.
Right.
These have got to be tough because it's split-second timing.
Absolutely.
Take a picture of somebody who's speaking and they look great one instant and their face is all contorted the next because of whatever vowel or consonant they're pronouncing. So
right.
Let's focus because we're almost out of time and I want to get to one more set of photos.
Okay.
How do you set yourself up for the good shot of someone in motion, action? I mean, we had it with running, but now we have it with something as simple as speaking or dancing, because the rest are all set up.
Well, again, this speaks to the thing we were talking about earlier. You have to shoot a lot. There are some people, especially the gentleman in the upper left giving a speech, he could be talking and his face can be so contorted it looks ridiculous, but in one shot it looks great. So you're going to have to shoot a lot. Some people, you'll get 1 out of 20 shots that looks acceptable. Other people, 1 out of 3 shots will be fine. And it just depends on who they are and how they speak. That's really what it amounts to.
Now, we have 2 more sets.
Right.
We have interior design. I'll leave this up. We've got tables, we've got beds, we have a bed, we have a kitchen, we have what looks like a dining area, and I assume that's the bathroom on the lower left. So that's the interior design. And here we have the exterior design, if you will, what you call architecture. Although these are also, except for the 2 upper photos, they're also interior.
Right.
So what's the difference between interior design and interior architecture? And what's the difference between shooting inside and shooting outside?
Well, shooting the architecture shots, which is basically a farm, it's privately owned. And in that case, it was just to capture the beauty and the simplicity of the space. It is what it is. It's the owner's vision of what he wanted for his place. It's a beautiful building in a 150-acre farm, and he's got all this really cool stuff on the inside. So I want to capture the flavor of what that looked like. With the other ones, the modern interior, that was actually shot as models for a very high-end rental building that they were renting out apartments. So they had interior designers come in, put in all the furniture, and they needed photographs of kind of what you could make your apartment look like. So different kind of thought process. In the one with the apartment, we just want to make it look beautiful and luxurious and opulent, where with the farm, we wanted to catch this unbelievable design and simplicity of what living in a farmhouse is.
Ed, this has been fascinating. I want to thank you. I'm going to put up your contact information in a moment, but I just want to thank you so much on behalf of our viewers for taking the time. This has been a master class in photography.
Well, thank you so much, Bruce. I really appreciate it, and I had a great time.
On behalf of our viewers, I thank you, and as promised, if you want to get in touch with Ed, here you have his contact information. Ed, I thank you again. Of course, I thank all of our viewers. And as I like to say at the end of all of my podcasts, thank you for watching and keep focused on success.